Welcome back to the Dragon and the Phoenix podcast. I'm Heather here with Craig, and we're back after a couple of weeks off. We had some vacations, some family issues we had to deal with, but we're happy to be back because tonight we're talking about one of our favorite cryptids, Bigfoot. Now, Craig, I think our fascination with Bigfoot goes all the way back to when we were kids and would watch Harry and the Hendersons on repeat.
Yes. Watching that show as a kid was always memorable.
Yeah, we had a VHS. I think we also rented it from the video store whenever we could. For those of you who may not know it, it's a classic from the 80s about a family. It's John Lithgow is the dad, and he hits a Bigfoot while they're out on their vacation, and he decides to tie it to the roof of the car. And hilarity ensues, and it's just a crazy film from start to finish, very funny. But yeah, I think that's where it all started for us. And since then, you know, we've always been fascinated by Bigfoot. You know, we love the big guy. We've done some squatching ourselves when we were in the mountains of Virginia. You want to tell everybody about that little episode?
Yes, we were in Massanutten. There's a resort there, and we were out late at night on the balcony of our condo, and I just decided to do a Sasquatch yell. So that probably freaked out some people. I imagine it was quite loud, and I remember the laughing afterwards.
Yeah, it was very loud. I remember we didn't tell our parents we were doing it. So they were very confused by what that noise was outside. You know, we didn't get a Squatch to answer back, but we did have a great time. I think we were rolling on the floor back inside the condo because we were afraid that somebody was going to get mad. But it was a great moment, great experience. And, you know, this is not something that I think either of us have had a personal encounter with, but thousands of people across the globe have had encounters with a giant ape-like creature. And Craig, why don't you go into a little bit about what these creatures are called across the globe?
Well, you know, it's quite interesting. You got a lot of history with Bigfoot. The Native Americans, the Chinese, the Indonesians, the pioneers, and I believe parts of Vietnam. I believe there is different names. They all say it's all in their history passed down from their ancestors about a giant ape in the woods or in caves, or like up in the snow mountains, up in the mountains. Like in China, they're called the wild man. In Mongolia, they're called the Alma. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Alma. Tibet, I cannot pronounce that. We'll skip that one. In either in Southwest Virginia, which I find interesting, it's called the wood booger, or beast of Gum Hill. You got, of course, you got Canada, Sasquatch, and then Nepal, you have Yeti. So it's quite interesting. You've got the Ohio grassman too. So it's kind of interesting. You know, you look in the history of Bigfoot or wherever you're from, what it's called, and it's strange that, you know, them being in different parts of the world, there is a story of a giant ape that they have come across. So it's quite interesting. Maybe it is some say it could be the Jurassic ape back then, but there has been multiple reports all over the world, videos that I just don't get why they're blurry. Maybe the Sasquatch does something to it. I don't know, but yeah, there is. I mean, there's footprints. We're just waiting for DNA. I think that's what we need. So yeah, it's all over the world. So
Yeah, even Florida has its own version of Sasquatch. They call it the skunk ape. It's supposed to live in the Everglades and the swamps and have a very pungent smell. That's how you know he's around. You can drive through the glades and you will see even little roadside stands that are set up where the natives are trying to make a buck off of tourists and sell skunk ape items for $2, $4, $5. But it's definitely a tourist industry within the glades. So we have all this history. Native Americans, it's within their lore. They tell tales of a ape-like creature that lived in the woods. Like you said, all the way across the seas in Nepal and Tibet, we have the Yeti and all the fascination that goes with that. And we don't yet have in front of us a Sasquatch to prove that they're real. We, like you said, we don't even have a clear photo. You would think in the day and age of the cell phones that we have, that you would be able to get a clear photo of one. The most famous video is obviously one of the first that you see Sasquatch walking across the flame. He looks back across his shoulder. That kind of sparked, I think, even in the United States, the craze about Bigfoot. But even that, there's a lot of questions about the authenticity of that film. The people who shot it insist it's real, but only they really know, and they could be lying. So what we need is that firm proof that this creature actually exists. And I know there's a lot of skeptics about this, and I was thinking about this the other day. Everybody's like, well, how populated we are, and we've stretched out all across the globe. Why haven't we been able to find one yet? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, I live in a city with about 30,000 people, and I have never once in the entire time I've lived here run into one of my coworkers other than at work. I've never gone to Walmart or seen them, never been at the grocery store and ran into them. So if you're thinking about one individual or even 10 individuals, or like a family pack of even 20 in the great wilderness, hundreds of thousands of acres of forest, that you might come across and intersect with them at the same time, seems just like such a small chance. And I think that may help explain why we don't have photos, we don't have video yet, because if they really are out there, they're probably trying to avoid us like the plague. And so the chances of crossing one person and one Sasquatch are very small. We've had a lot of false hope. I know you had sent me a link a couple of weeks ago of a supposed skull that had been uncovered, but that ended up not being true.
Yes, that would be by Cody Peterson, which I thought would be a good source. I know he is very famous for educational work. If you don't know who Cody Peterson is, he is the guy that stings himself with insects and see how much they hurt. But yes, he put out a post saying that he had a Bigfoot skull, or a large ape skull that he found in the Northwest. And that got the community so excited, even got like non-believers excited too. Like, oh my God, oh my goodnthis, that could be real. So he put out a video, and it was going good until he said, "This is what you do if you find a big what you don't do when you find a Bigfoot skull." And that moment, then I knew it was fake. It was a reenactment of what it would if you found a Bigfoot skull. So he actually didn't find one. He got a lot of negative feedback. A lot of people were mad, including me. I didn't leave any negative feedback. I'm not that type of person, but yeah, he actually took the Facebook post down. Yeah, but the video is still on YouTube. So if you want to check it out, you can, but it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Well, you know, despite that, there are a lot of people out there who are doing legitimate work in trying to track down Bigfoot. If we could, there would be untold scientific knowledge gained by identifying the species, how it's kept itself hidden, how long it's been around. So, you know, there is value in pursuing that science. You know, one of my favorite people in the world, Josh Gates, who does Expedition Unknown, did Destination Truth. He has actually been somebody who has gone out numerous times in Nepal and searched for the Yeti. And it was a couple years ago, he went, they were up in the snow and they found footprints. They cast them, documented them, sent them out for scientific research. And, you know, it came back that they couldn't be identified as anything known. Those casts of those footprints are actually included in an exhibit at Disney World on the Expedition Everest ride. When you walk through, one of the things you'll see is a display about Josh Gates and his search for the Yeti. So, you know, it's that type of evidence that's coming in from people who do legitimate research. You know, Josh, even though he's on TV, he's an archaeologist. He has a degree in archaeology. You know, he's done this all across the globe. And so there is some evidence that something is out there, even if we might not know what it is. You know, I've never seen one, try as I might. I've really tried. You know, we go a lot of places, we travel. When I'm on the way from Indiana to Florida on our yearly trip and we're driving through the wilds of Alabama where there doesn't seem to be anything, you know, I'm keeping an eye on the forests. When we go to Michigan, I'm keeping an eye on the side of the road just in case something might be there. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of misidentification. Bears could easily be mistaken if they were standing upright. But it's hard to imagine that everybody who's seen something is mistaking a bear for a human-like object.
Yes, yeah, bears. We know a lot about our nature because our family is really into nature. A bear usually stands up and he kind of waddles. He doesn't walk like a human, mostly. But sometimes, you know, Bigfoots do get, or sometimes seen as bears. Like in trail cameras and stuff, they'll be like the back end, and people would think it would be a bear or a Bigfoot, and it's actually a bear. So unfortunately, you know, there is larger animal species in there, but you know, just the findings, what they're finding. Now, you mentioned Josh Gates, my favorite person. Well, Josh Gates is one of my favorite people, but also is Bobo, finding Bigfoot. That was another big show, and I believe it was Animal Planet, that really took off, really showed what people do. They, you know, what technology they use. They use infrared. They do the calls. That's where I got inspired to do that one call. So yeah, it's interesting to see that. Yeah, they're the champions of hide and seek. So Yeah, if I ever saw one, I would probably pee my pants and cry at the exact same time. Or I might crap myself. I don't know. But I might cry. I probably would cry because it'd be, everybody's got this chance to see, some of these people got the chance to see this creature. I've yet to see it, but I would probably cry and then have a heart attack at the exact same time. So they're pretty. They always say they're pretty intimidating with with their growls and throwing stuff, just like what a gorilla, the silverback gorilla, would do in the wild. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned Finding Bigfoot. I've watched probably all of the episodes. And there was a lot of compelling evidence. They never captured a Bigfoot or, even a clear photo. But there was a lot of compelling evidence with what they were using for heat signatures, callbacks, nests they were finding. But I think they kept missing the most glaringly obvious thing, that there was a Bigfoot with them the entire time. Because I'm pretty sure Bobo was just a shaved Bigfoot. I mean, if you haven't seen the show, this guy was hugely tall. And before recent years, he was a big guy. He had lost a lot of weight for health reasons. But I swear he was just a shaved Bigfoot, because he had the perfect call and just his size. I think he was Bigfoot and they just didn't know it. Of course, he would always, when they were measuring, they would use him when they were measuring, like, how tall did he look, compared to Bobo. I always thought that was funny, because I was like, well, just as tall as Bobo, because he's the Bigfoot. Anyway, so, Bigfoot has been hugely popular in pop culture. Like we mentioned, Harry and the Hendersons. He's in a lot of books. He's always the mysterious figure in the woods. And I think, we kind of just fallen in love with that mystery of something close to us, being out there and waiting to be discovered. So speaking of Bobo and his calls, your call was pretty good too, but maybe people don't know what we mean by calls. So can you explain a little bit about what a Sasquatch is supposed to sound like and how they might be communicating in a way that we might not expect?
Yes, I will not reenact on the
Oh, come
podcast
on.
because I don't want to blow out the microphone. I don't want to blow out the microphone. But just imagine inhaling a lot of air, bigger, like twice the mass of you, and yelling, or even doing like a low or something like that. In the pit of your stomach and letting it all out. Scream as loud as you want. There's reports like that. Usually you'll hear them with coyotes. Coyotes will start going crazy, or wolves. Coyotes is the most reports have come with Bigfoots. They also do whistling. They whistle. They just they just whistle, and that's another form of communication. Another one is tree knocking. So they take a big limb and they knock on the tree, and they usually do it 1 or 2 or 3 times. They haven't gotten down to science to it, but in the Finding Bigfoot, they do get calls back, which I find pretty fascinating. Mm-hmm. So there is something out there calling back to them or responding to them.
Yeah, it was always interesting to hear, an almost immediate response, and it would be off in the distance. And I was always worried, what if something answers and then comes and finds you? Like, it's all good to be calling and trying to communicate with them, but then, what if you do make contact and you say something nasty? We don't know what the various calls and sounds and pitches might mean, and you might insult, Bigfoot's mama, and he'll have to come get you. But it was always interesting to see what you would hear back. And like you mentioned, that often wolves would join in, which was interesting. You can maybe imagine Bigfoot keeps wolves as like we keep dogs, as pets. Uh, but yeah, so I think we always think of Bigfoot as being very primitive because they live in the woods, but those that research Bigfoot and Sasquatch do believe that, much like gorillas, that they live in societies, that there are ranks to their numbers, and that they possibly use tools. I mean, if they're using wood to knock against trees to communicate, that would show intelligence. So I think, it's paramount that if we do stumble upon a Sasquatch at some point and we have hard evidence, we know they exist, that we really need to take steps to protect them, and to make sure that we don't have a bunch of people running out into the woods trying to bag a Sasquatch. I know there are various places across the world who actually already have laws in place that make them a protected species, just in case somebody happens to finally find one.
Yeah, I believe in it's where it's called the Yeti, which is in Nepal. There is an actual park called the Yeti. I believe it's like the Yeti National Park, and it's actually for the Yeti.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's where Josh Gates has done some of his research, is within that park, and they're a protected animal within that park. And at the same time, you'll go down to the markets in the lower regions, and they'll be selling monkey paws as Yeti hands, or Yeti fingers. So it's really important that if they do exist, that we make sure that those laws are quickly enacted or already in place, that we protect their habitat. You worry about, if these animals do exist, as society continues to grow and urban sprawl happens, and we knock down more and more trees, that that might force an encounter at one point. As the climate gets warmer, it's going to force animals into other regions that they might not typically be seen in. So, I would hate to think that our first encounter with a Yeti or a Sasquatch will be as it's foraging through a dumpster for food, because we've knocked down all its trees and killed all the animals that live in its habitat that it uses for food.
Yeah, I'm afraid also, our first encounter also is going to be a body. Hunters will see it, or somebody will freak out and shoot it. I would rather see it alive. Hurting animals is not my quota anymore. So,
yeah, I think encountering a Sasquatch for the first time as a dead body would be really disheartening, and I really hope it doesn't go that way. So, we are getting short on time, Craig, but I know there were some other things you wanted to touch on to just let people know about Bigfoot in general.
yes. So there is recordings swarming around the internet that Bigfoot actually has a language. It sounds like the African tribe language of the popping and the tongue clicking and stuff like that. It's very suspicious, but of course we don't see him talking. Also with Bigfoots, if they're also seen with glowing red eyes. So they say there could be some bioluminescence with Bigfoot, sorry. And
well, what is the plural of Bigfoot? Is it Bigfoots or big feet?
I think it's just Bigfoot. I would honestly would think it would just be Bigfoot. Or oh my goodness. But there's like the eye glare. Yes, and I also believe this is my kind of belief on the Bigfoot. Bigfoot are actually protectors of the wildlife, I think. Some like I believe the Native Americans actually call them tree guardians or forest guardians. Some people think they're paranormal because because they're also seen with glowing orbs. They see them with glowing orbs too. So maybe they are spirits of some type, but we will not know until we find that Bigfoot.
I like the idea of Bigfoot as like the spirit of the forest, as a protector, as something that's there to ensure the survival of the forest and everything that lives there. That's kind of a beautiful sentiment, I think. All right, Craig. Well, I think that wraps us up for this week. Thanks everybody for joining us for yet another show. Make sure to check us out on our socials below. Next week, we're going to be right back at it again. And I think we're going to talk about another one of our favorite topics, dinosaurs. We'll talk everything from discoveries to the movies that portray them, the great Michael Crichton books that got all those movies started. So I'm excited for that topic. I think Craig is too. We both like dinosaurs a whole lot, I know. So we will catch you next week. And until then, rise up
And breathe fire.